What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. This is a series of unfortunate events, Season 1, Episode 7, The Miserable Meal, Part 1. This show got me. It got me so good. Oh my gosh. That fake out is just ridiculous. Because ultimately, it just makes everything even more unfortunate. Oh my god. Oh, the rewatchability value of this season is gonna go so high up now. Oh my word. Okay. So, yeah, I'm. If you guys haven't been watching my videos that often, if you don't really know who I am, I'm somebody who likes to try to figure things out. And when I think I've got something figured out, and all of a sudden figure out that I don't have it figured out at all, it bothers me because I want to know how I was managed to be fooled so easily. But yeah, I was. Not their parents. So Will Arnett, Kobe Smulders, not playing their parents. Um, the names of their children at the end did ring a bell, and I remember the Quagmire siblings that they meet later on, like way down the road. So apparently this is actually the parents of the Quagmire siblings. So don't know where this is going. Don't know why they decided to show us these parents aside from making us think that they were the Baudelaire parents the entire time. But it really just it all connects so well. Like it does make a lot of sense. First of all, they are still kind of connected in that the Quagmires will eventually become a big part of the story. Uh, but just seeing how these parents trying to get back to their kids, how it affected the Baudelaire's adventure throughout the entire thing, that also connected to it. But ultimately, it's just perfectly in line with the show, with the book series. This is exactly something that the original author of Lemony Snicket, I can't remember his real name now, but this is something he would have done. I mean, showing us these parents and be like, oh, look, guys, the Baudelaire parents are still alive. It looked like they died in that fire, but they made it out okay. So now they're gonna reunite at some point. They're gonna live happily ever after. Oh, just kidding. It was the Quagmires the whole time. Now you feel even worse, don't you? I do. I feel so much more terrible now because for so long I felt so hopeful. I was like, oh, look, the parents are still alive. And I totally forgot that nothing fortunate ever happens to these kids, ever. So, of course, they're not their real parents. They shouldn't have been, ever. And honestly, I mean, it just works out so well. And just the little subtle things. Of course, there were some not subtle things as we got closer to the actual reveal. Getting out. Uh, they for some reason take on a refrigerator repairman, but then they get to the door, and at that point, it's almost like especially because it's the next to last episode in the season, that they're not going to see their parents. So I'm like, okay, so this is a fake out of some sorts. Does that mean that they're not at the lumber mill? Does that mean that something else is going on? I mean, I figured it was going to be Count Olaf and Dr. Orwell outside the doors for the Baudelaires. But I was like, so where are the parents now? And so seeing them walk in, and on top of that, there was a scene earlier on where Lemony Snicket's talking about if you're waking up in a mansion to blueberry pancakes or something along those lines, blueberry waffles. And it's like, if you wake up in this, it's probably a good day. However, if you're waking up in a lumber mill, and so that transition happens and it shows the Baudelaires waking up in the lumber mill. I was like, why show the kids in the mansion? That was very random to just randomly show this scene where kids are waking up in a mansion. So when they walk into the mansion, I'm just like, now it makes sense. They're already drawing connections between the Quagmires and the Baudelaires. Wow. Wow. Just all of it working together is so clever. Because I really didn't expect something so clever. I expected it to be fairly straightforward, just follow this story, just going step by step. But the truth is, it's very clever in how they set all of this up. And like I said, the rewatchability of it now, it's got to be just incredible to go back and watch and be like, so what are these things now? Whenever they're talking about getting to see their kids, we know who they're talking about now. When they're talking about certain things, it's like, oh, well, we thought it was the Baudelaires. As it turns out, they're actually probably talking to somebody else entirely that just happens to line up with our story at the moment. It was so well set up. It's just brilliant. So now that I'm done talking about that, let's talk about the rest of the episode. Because there's a lot of stuff going on here that some of it ties into the book, some of it does not. We do see, Count Olaf is there with the optometrist. In this one, they actually give them a previous relationship. In the book, it was more like he and her kind of were in cahoots because they both wanted the money. And on top of that, I was trying to look into her character a little bit just to see, I couldn't really remember much about her. I didn't remember how she comes to her end in the books, because that one always left an impression. There are a couple deaths in the books that definitely left an impression on me. But I was looking up her character, and it said that according to the books, there were hints in some of the other books outside of the main series where they're talking about VFD and the whole secret organization where she might have been a part of it. Well, in the TV show, they're just like, screw that, we're going to go all in. Like she's definitely a part of it. And they're talking about how she and Olaf used to have a relationship. They used to go on schemes and heists together. And so, they're building all that up. We see Sir and Charles, his partner, which, another thing I wanted to look up, because here, obviously, because it feels like every show nowadays, it just has to be, oh, we're pro this, we're pro this. And so whenever they start talking about partner, and he's talking very high pitched and maybe acting a little feminine, I'm like, not going there, are they? And then Lemony Snicket comes out, he's like, in our progressive times, I'm just like, ugh, do we really have to do this? Are these characters even like this in the books? And so I started looking at it, I started reading about his character, and apparently a lot of the readers of the books hinted at it. And so I guess the TV show saw that and said, you know what? We're not going to hint at it. We're just going to full out go. They're definitely partners. And if you've watched some of my other reviews, you know my feelings on it. I feel like it's become too much in media nowadays. It's become like you have to have a homosexual character or a homosexual couple in your show, or else you're not pushing equality. You need to have that in your show, or else. I'm just like, why force it? If it's not there, don't force it. In this case, if it was hinted at in the books, fine. If you wanted to go through with it, whatever. At least they're not forcing it onto a character that was obviously not gay in the books. That would be one thing. But if it was hinted at and they decided to go with it, fine. It doesn't bother me. And on top of that, they do manage to play on some funny things, because like you see Charles is. It's like Sir doesn't really know if they're partners like that, but Charles thinks they are, and so it does lead to some funny jokes and funny moments in it. So that part of it was fun. But overall, I mean, it sets up to where the Baudelaires get in there. Sir finds them, knows that they're Baudelaires, and apparently blames their parents for the fire that happened inside the town of Paltryville. And so now he puts them to work inside the lumber mill. We see that the hook-handed man is in there as the new foreman, which in the books it was actually the bald-headed man. And the only reason I remember that is because the hook-handed man was in the second book, and then the indeterminate gender guy was in the third book, and then the bald man was in the fourth one. I'm pretty sure the white-faced women were in the fifth one. Because, like I said, in the books, that's how it was. It was like there was one hench person, or in case of the white-faced women, two. There was always just one of them, like, in every book. And they were always hidden, and you never were sure. In this case, it was actually pretty obvious because, what was his name? Ah, crap, I can't remember his name now. It's like Fukatono or something like that. They always had, like, in their profession, they were always an anagram, if that's the word I'm looking for, of Count Olaf's name. And so after Luca Font, which was the doctor as the hook-handed man in the reptile room, after that one you kind of got an idea of, okay, so that's what I'm looking for. And so in the books, whenever you saw that name, you're like, okay, so that's got to be somebody, right? And when they found out later it was the bald-headed man, I was like, oh, see, it was him. So that was always a lot of fun. And so the fact that, one, they're obviously having a lot of them show up in pretty much every episode. But on top of that, now they're changing them out to where now it's the hook-handed man, and the kids should be able to tell because his hands aren't moving at all. Like if I knew there was a hook-handed man who wore fake hands from time to time, and I saw his hands were looking really fake-like, I'd be like, hey, wait a minute. So I don't know. I just wish they'd made it the bald-headed man, just because he could have put on a mask and then made it less obvious and whatever. Little details like that sometimes bug me, but it doesn't ruin anything or anything like that. It's still he's good in the part. He does a good job of kind of tormenting the Baudelaires without seemingly picking them out, because pretty much like in the book, Sir is a dick to everybody that works for him. But there is a point where Klaus is like, I want to make sure it's not Count Olaf, so he goes to check his ankle. Instead of in the book where the foreman, I think, tripped him or something, like it was very nondescript. It seemed like the foreman was just being a jerk to Klaus. In this one, he's like, no, I'm just going to kick you and then step on your glasses. And that's why he ends up going to Dr. Orwell. So they get over there, and, the very optimistic guy is there. I think Phil is his name. And so Dr. Orwell brings him in and starts talking to him, and then hypnotizes him. And so he comes back and he's all smiling. He's like, yes, sir. I'm ready to work, sir. And I like the little touches, like the, Klaus, would you like to get out of bed today? Yes, sir. Would you like to grab your sister Sunny? And so he grabs her. Would you like to make some mulch? I'm like, what is he saying? But thankfully Klaus takes that literally and starts actually making mulch, not with Sunny. But then the one thing that did bug me, out of all of this, some of the stuff that was different from the books, some of the stuff that they did that I didn't necessarily like as much, none of that really bugs me. There are certain changes that I understand are like, okay, you have to make changes to make it different from the book. I get that. But the one thing that did bug me is Klaus is sitting there making mulch. Violet's trying to get him to snap out of it. And then she says, I miss you an inordinate amount. And, of course, from the books, I kind of got this by looking up a little bit of the story. Inordinate ends up being the word to snap him out of it. But in the books, it's actually the foreman, the bald-headed man, that says it. After Klaus had already done something, I can't remember what he did in the book, but he did something bad, and then the foreman snaps him out of it using that word. And so it kind of makes sense, because it's like, okay, he knows the trigger word, so of course he would say it to snap him out of it so that Klaus looks like he's completely fine whenever he's talking to Surf or whatever he did. But the fact that Violet said it, and it's just like, why use that word? Who would ever use that word at all? For the foreman in the book, it makes sense because, like I said, he knows the word. But for Violet to use it, it's like, no, no. That's just your little way of being like, oh, look at that. It's actually her that says it this time. It doesn't make sense at all. That's the biggest problem. If you have to make a change, or if you want to make a change, that's fine. But make sure it's a change that makes sense. Make sure it's not something that is completely nonsensical and wouldn't actually happen, like in this case. It bugs me because I've seen stuff like this before. I've seen other things that change something like this in a story, whether it's a different adaptation or something like that. They'll make certain changes, except the changes won't make sense. I think the best example of it, if you've seen the last Airbender movie, one of the changes they made, instead of, I guess they didn't have enough budget because they wasted it on crappy CGI effects, instead of putting the earthbending prison on a boat, they just left it on land, which doesn't make any sense for earthbenders, right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. It's just clearly you making a change because you didn't want to put it on a boat. You didn't have the money to put it on a boat, probably. But still, if you're going to make that change, if you want to save money, make it a set that's just not as grand. You don't have to show the boat itself. You could just make the set look like it's on a boat, something like that. But to put it on land means that the earthbenders could easily get out, so that doesn't make any sense at all. It's the same thing here. If you want to change, maybe if you want to change the trigger word to something a little bit differently, maybe make the trigger word an easier word to say. That would be a bit more interesting. But to just have Violet say inordinate out of nowhere, she's already used so many other synonyms for that word, and then just out of nowhere she's like, you know what? This one time, I want to use the word inordinate, because who knows why? Because it just fits in the story. So yeah, it is a problem, but it's not. I mean, it's not anything that's gonna like ruin the show for me. It's still like the rest of it's still good. It does kind of irk me a little bit when changes like that happen. The Uber joke that they made 2 episodes ago. Stuff like that is bothering. It's not terrible, but it doesn't feel like it fits with the show. It doesn't feel like, this change doesn't feel like it deserves to be there. It deserves to be a different type of change. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe not. I really don't know what other people are saying about the show. I haven't really looked up any other reviews about it. Obviously I'm on the last episode, so hoping that it ends on a high note. Hoping that it's all good at the end. That there's no problems that I have. But we'll see. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What did you like and dislike about this episode? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future series of Unfortunate Event reviews, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.